Welcome to this, a video in a series produced by Our Lady of the Greenwood for the Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults process. The topic for this video is places in the Catholic Church. Resources used in compiling the video include Journey of the Faith series that we hand out to all of the students, the New American Bible, and Catechism of the Catholic Church. In short, Catholics use their parish church for public worship and personal prayer. Every place and object in a church building has special significance. When we gather in church, Christ is in our midst. When we start the conversation about places in the Catholic Church, first we'll look at all the main locations of church buildings around the world. The Catholic Church spans the globe, and the buildings of worship, prayer, and administration start locally and then expand to include the Vatican and Rome. Your parish center exists solely for the goods of souls according to Vatican II, and some were set up by geographic territories and some were established to serve specific groups of immigrants. Other local buildings you may have is a rectory, which is the residence of the priest, the convent, which is the residence of religious sisters that go out in the world to serve, and the cloister, the living areas and adjoining property of religious order who restrict their contact with the outside world, also known as a monastery. Regionally, there's the cathedral, which is the official church of the bishop or archbishop of the diocese or archdiocese. The name comes from Latin cathedra, for the chair. There's a diocese, the portion of the people of God that is entrusted for pastoral care to a bishop or archbishop. The diocese can be divided into deaneries, which are divided further into parishes. The chancery is the bishop or archbishop's office. It may also be where centralized ministries are managed in what we call the Catholic Center. On a global basis, the basilica is the church designated as a place of special importance where Pope normally presides over Mass. And Vatican City itself is a 108-acre plot in Rome that serves as the worldwide headquarters of the Catholic Church and as the official residence of the Pope. It is recognized as a temporal state, with the Pope as its temporal leader. The Church also has mission territories, which are geographic locations where the gospel has not yet been preached or where the response to the gospel has not been sufficient for the establishing and sustaining of a physical church. Now let's begin investigating what happens in your parish. Your local parish is the center of spiritual nourishment. Most parishes have territorial boundaries and serve people in a local area. Parish may be named to honor a person of the Trinity, a saint, or a significant event in the life of Jesus or Mary. Most parishes have a narthex, or gathering place, that divides the main entrance from the nave, the people's worship area. When you walk into the church, you'll see a small bowl of water. That is a font containing holy water. The faithful dip tips of fingers in water and make the sign of the cross as they enter and leave the church. There's a baptismal font, which is a large raised vessel or basin in which holy water is contained for baptisms, usually located in a prominent place, either near the church entrance or in the sanctuary itself. The Easter or Paschal candle is a large ornamented candle symbolic of the risen Christ, often positioned near the altar, lectern, or baptismal font. During the Easter season, It burns at every liturgy. It is also placed next to the casket during funerals as a sign of hope in the resurrection and of our faith that Christ will receive the departed into the fullness of his kingdom. The Stations of the Cross, also known as the Way of the Cross, are 14 crosses or images representing or depicting the steps Jesus took to his death. Reconciliation Chapel, or Confessional Reconciliation Room, is a private space where a person celebrates the sacrament of penance and reconciliation. Most of these provide for confessions to be made anonymously, that is, behind a screen, or, if you prefer, face-to-face with the priest. Now, let's continue our investigation by looking at sacred spaces. The main area of focus for liturgical ceremonies is the sanctuary. And in the sanctuary is the altar, the Lord's table, the focus of the Eucharist. On the altar, during Eucharistic prayer, the bread and wine become the body and blood of Christ. At the altar, the priest reads from the Roman Missal. It is the book of prayers used at Mass. Candles adorn the altar to symbolize Christ's presence and the light. To one side of the altar is the ambo. There you'll find the lectionary, the book of Mass readings. This is where the clergy proclaim the gospel. To the other side of the altar you may find the lectern. It is where non-scriptural reading and song leading may occur. A cross or crucifix, a cross containing the image of Christ's body, reminds us of his suffering and death. You'll find one placed either on or near the altar. It may be used in procession at the beginning and the end of the Mass. The tabernacle is a special receptacle in which the Eucharistic bread is reserved for the purpose of bringing communion to the sick and for private devotion. The sanctuary lamps, often red in color, house candles that continuously burn near the tabernacle when the Eucharistic bread is present. Now let's move on and take a look at clerical vestments that are worn by the clergy at your parish. There's a sacristy. It is the room where the priest and ministers prepare for liturgical services and put on their religious garments called vestments. The vestments include an alb, long white garment symbolic of the purity one should have when approaching God. Priests, deacons, and altar servers wear albs. The cincture, a belt or cord, often white, worn around the waist over the alb. The chasuble is the outermost garment worn by a priest during the Mass. Colors of the chasuble match the liturgical season or feasts. The dalmatic is a garment similar but shorter than the chasuble, and it's worn by the deacon. The stole is a narrow fabric band that's worn around the neck by priests and bishops, while a deacon wears a stole over his left shoulder like a sash. Now finally, remember your local parish. It is the place to gather, pray, share our joys and sorrows, and be part of the people of God. That's it for this topic, places in the Catholic Church. Thank you for joining us on this journey in faith, put on by Our Lady of the Greenwood, for the rite of Christian initiation of adults process.